Hello everyone! Today I will be reviewing the second season of Kodocha, also known as Kodocha Series 2. It's been an exciting year for Kodocha fans in the West, as this is the first time this season has been released here, ever. Thanks to Discotek Media, Kodocha fans overseas are now able to enjoy the latter half of the series without relying on sketchy anime sites to finally find out what Sana and her friends are up to. Kodocha Series 2 features the gang heading into middle school, with more drama, more romance, and more acting opportunities for our favorite shoujo protagonist, Sana Kurata. While many fans prefer the first half of the series, Kodocha Series 1 or Season 1, there is still a lot to enjoy in the second season, thanks to the excellent new sub work by Discotek. I must admit the first time I watched Season 2 many years ago, I didn't really enjoy it much, and it took me some time to get through it. I was either really frustrated or really bored while watching it. However, after watching through it again, and with an open mind and subtitles that didn't leave me in a frustrating state of confusion, I can honestly say Season 2 is almost as good as Season 1, but in a different way. Going into Season 2 after Season 1, we have certain expectations for where the series will go, especially for those who read the manga first. With these expectations, we are left feeling almost empty, a bit disappointed, and ultimately confused. I can understand why most fans feel this way, however, upon rewatching the season, I feel that these initial feelings and expectations are ultimately misleading. There's a lot to enjoy in Kodocha Series 2, so I will be discussing each component of it, from the animation, story, music, and more. At the end of the video, I will give an overall rating for it, and hopefully both new fans and hardcore fans of Kodocha will get something out of my review. Without further ado, let's take an in-depth look at Kodocha Series 2, and analyze everything it gets right and wrong. The new Blu-ray release from Discotek not only gives us some clean, coherent subtitles, but also better quality versions of the episodes. While this release is in standard definition, it still looks really good despite not being in HD or 4K. The animation of Kodocha has always felt very unique and beautiful in an unconventional way. You have the combination of the cartoony movements of the characters and the exaggeration of situations or facial expressions to add to the comedy, as well as beautifully drawn characters who have a plethora of outfits worn throughout the series to give them their identity. One of my favorite things about Kodocha is the way the characters' eyes are drawn, and how expressive they can be. This is especially evident in episode 87, when Akito is sulking in the park after Fuga tells him she wants to break up. You can see a shift in Akito's eyes when Sana comes over to hug him. His eyes go from cold and brooding to calm and peaceful. This is just one of the many examples from the anime, and we see this with all the characters. The facial expressions in general are great, especially during more lighthearted episodes. It makes moments that would normally just make me chuckle into moments where I'm laughing so loud that it scares my dog and he looks at me like I'm crazy. Okay, so I'm exaggerating a little, but my dog did look at me strangely after laughing too loud after one of Babbitt's absurd and unnecessary jokes. One last thing about the animation is that the backgrounds are just so aesthetically pleasing. This is one thing that I miss in modern anime. The backgrounds in 90s and early 2000s anime have such detail and pretty colors. I believe many of the backgrounds were watercolored, with bright colors typically being utilized, such as bright blues, yellows, and green. Here are some of the backgrounds featured in Season 2, courtesy of our friend Sean from the Kodocha Discord. Definitely one of my favorite aspects of the animation and art style, which leads me into my rating for that category as a whole. I give the animation and art style of Kodocha Series 2 a 9 out of 10 for being a unique mix of quirky, beautiful, and colorful. The next aspect of Season 2 I'd like to talk about is the voice acting and the subtitles. Each voice actor fits the character that they play, and they all do an amazing job whether they are being silly or serious. Out of all the Japanese voice actors, Akito's and Nazumi's were probably my favorite. Akito's voice actor, Tetsuya Nakazaki, did an excellent job at giving Akito his sullen and cold demeanor. Meanwhile, Nazumi's voice actor, Omi Minami, was able to give Natsumi so much pain in his voice during the more emotional moments of the season, and you could really feel his suffering. If this season had been dubbed into English, it's hard for me to imagine this level of emotion being given to the character by his English VA, as much as I loved his performance as Natsumi as well. This is just my preference and opinion, but the Japanese VA really made me feel for Natsumi. However, there were some moments that went a little over the top for me. I'd like to point out a moment from the middle of the season when Sana and Natsumi go to New York, and spoiler alert, Natsumi finds out he has a younger sister, and well, this happens. Anyways, let's move on to the new subtitles by Discotek. There really isn't any negative thing I can say about them. Subbing Kodocha is quite the feat, with how fast Sana talks and all the signs, songs, and fast-paced movement throughout the series. Despite the hurdles faced by the subbing team, they did an excellent job with not only making the season coherent, but also giving new life to the already established characters. A character I once felt indifferent about, Fuka, became a character I enjoyed seeing come on screen after a while. The new subtitles really emphasize her fiery nature and blunt personality. Before, it was difficult to set her apart from Sana, but now it's easier to distinguish the personalities between the two. Fuka is definitely more open about her true feelings than Sana. While I think Sana would refrain from saying something if she thought it would hurt someone's feelings, I think Fuka would just outright say it with disregard to the person's feelings. I really came around to Fuka after watching the new subs, which says a lot about how well written and thorough they were. The team definitely understood the assignment, which is why I give the voice acting and the subtitles a 10 out of 10. For these next two sections, I'm going to split the story into two parts, the canon material and the filler material. Oddly enough, these are definitely the weaker aspects of Season 2. The story and filler episodes are all great in their own right, however, it definitely pales in comparison to Season 1. Removing my personal expectations for Season 2 changed my perception of it though. In a way, it makes sense why this season is so different from the first one. The characters are older, entering middle school and adolescence. It makes sense that there would be a stronger focus on drama and romance rather than comedy. Going forward, there will be spoilers, so if you want to skip, please go to the timestamp on screen, or click to the next section of the video in the description. The first part of Season 2 starts off strong, with Fuka Matsui being introduced as Sana's new friend and rival in love for Akito. Tension is also rising with Sana and Natsumi, as they are set to film a big-time movie in the mountains called The Mansion of Water. Rumors are flying that the two are dating. Before Sana leaves for her movie, she lies to a classmate wanting to date her named Ishida about her relationship with Natsumi, claiming that the two are in fact dating. The lie comes around to Akito and the rest of Sana's friends, which sparks a relationship between Fuka and Akito, as Akito feels hopeless about Sana and Fuka feels hopeless about her pursuit of her crush Takaishi. Sana learns about this after calling Akito from the mountains, which leaves her heartbroken, realizing that she had been in love with Akito for a long time. This part of the anime is very true to the source material, the manga, and the anime pulls it off very well. In my opinion, the first section of Season 2 is where it really shines and finds its new identity. An anime once focused more on comedy with romance in between is now becoming a full-fledged teen drama. As this plotline comes to an end, we are never really left with any resolve regarding the situation with Akito and Fuka, as the anime begins to deviate from the source material, with Sana and Natsumi flying off to New York to perform on Broadway. Due to Sana's heartbreak, she decides to take the opportunity to go to New York to escape her problems. Sana and Natsumi, along with Rei, get into a lot of shenanigans in New York along with American characters Brad and the Hamilton family. While they are staying with a sweet local woman named Bernadette, or Bernie for short, we slowly learn that Natsumi was called to New York because Gary Hamilton, the father of the Hamilton family and Broadway bigwig, is Natsumi's real father. We also learn that Cecil Hamilton is his younger sister, as I mentioned earlier, and his mother is a woman named Yuko, who is a performer that abandoned Natsumi because he got in the way of her pursuit of fame and stardom. While the New York arc is a bit too long for my liking, I still felt that it added something to the story of Kodocha as a whole. It definitely complements the themes set early on in the series, exploring the trauma and family dynamics of characters, and how it allows the characters to mature and grow from difficult experiences. I definitely think giving Natsumi more backstory was a positive change, and the situation in New York felt believable. I could see the New York arc being pulled from the pages of the manga, even though it is not from the source material or inspired by anything from it. The only problem with this arc is that it's too long, and there is too much time away from the other main characters. Instead, we get a recap episode of what was going on with them while the New York arc was going on, after the arc had already ended, which felt a bit rushed and disrespectful to the other characters, quite frankly. This is where Series 2 fails, in my opinion. The pacing of these episodes isn't very good, and things that had more importance in Season 1 feel like they are being pushed into the background in favor of the anime team trying to separate itself from the manga. There is nothing inherently wrong with this, but I do feel that there were times when the anime team struggled to come up with something new, so they just created a watered-down version of what happened in Season 1 or the things that happened in the manga. After the New York arc, we head into some mixed canon filler episodes, which I felt were the second best part of Season 2. Season 2 definitely handles the romance aspects well, making the love triangles and situations interesting to watch. Making Sana and Natsumi date is a decision I have mixed feelings about, because by the end of it, I just felt really bad for Natsumi that he finally gets to be with Sana, who he's loved for all his life, and then he is just heartbroken all over again, after already being rejected during the Mansion of Water arc. The section after the New York arc features a plotline where Sana gets fired from an acting job because the script was too similar to the early days of her and Akito, when Akito was being abused by his sister. Sana was unable to say the line, "You're the devil," but has trouble articulating to others as to why. Eventually, after the news breaks out that she was fired and she's being mocked on radio and TV, everyone finds out that she was unable to say that line, and they make the connection to Akito, proving that Sana really cares about how he feels. Akito finds out what happens to Sana and decides to make her a snowman on Christmas like he did the year before. The two meet as it's snowing outside and begin to confess their feelings for each other, when they are interrupted by their friends and a snowball fight begins. Like I mentioned before, this is one of those plot points that just feels like a watered-down version of the source material, but it's still one of the highlights of Season 2 in my opinion. I like the tension during these episodes that comes to a somewhat solid conclusion. As frustrating as it was to see Sana and Akito being interrupted in their confessions, it plays into the comedy aspect of the show and just makes us want to continue watching the series in hopes that they end up together after so long. While all of this is going on, there's a subplot involving Akito and his science teacher, Sengoku. Sengoku is a very bitter man who strongly dislikes Akito, seeing him as a delinquent because of his past in elementary school. Sengoku tries to sabotage Akito's happiness in many ways, even going as far to talk to Fuka's parents about his behavior, which motivates them to warn their daughter to keep him at a distance. Out of all the characters in Kodocha, there are none like Sengoku. Probably the most twisted and cruel character out of the entire series, Sengoku really never gets redemption despite his reasons for doing what he does to Akito and his friends. Alas, this is a subject for another video, but I wanted to mention just how unlikable this character is, and how it adds another layer to Kodocha's narrative that didn't exist before. That some characters are irredeemable no matter what happens to them or what they do. Again, a topic for another time, but I am glad the anime included this character. After the brief arc about the breakups between Sana and Natsumi, Akito, and Fuka, we get into the stretch of filler which I will discuss more in my next section. For now, I want to focus on the final arc of the anime, the Karate Club arc. This arc is also another highlight of Season 2, and is also a much better season finale than Season 1's. While the storyline also feels like a watered-down version of a manga-only scenario involving Akito and his classmate Kazuyuki, this arc still manages to be entertaining and leaves the viewers with a positive message about finding happiness and embracing all the things that make life worth living. The Karate Club arc focuses on Sana helping Akito form a karate club at their school. They are able to recruit 2 members, which include Ishida and a boy we haven't seen before named Nakao. Nakao is a very timid and quiet boy, and also the focal point of the arc. Due to his meek nature, Nakao doesn't stand out much to his teachers and classmates, which sends him into a spiral by about the 2nd or 3rd episode. He is unrecognized by Sengoku, and Akito shortly after tells him he isn't cut out for karate. This leaves Nikao feeling worthless and justifies his feelings of self-pity and hatred. Nikao runs away and locks himself inside the karate club room in the North School building, wanting to rot away without anyone being able to find him. Nikao leaves a note behind which Sengoku tries to use to get Akito expelled, as the note mentions how Akito made Nikao feel and how it drove him to run away. However, Sengoku hides the other half of the note, which expresses Nikao's desire for his sensei to come and rescue him. Akito realizes Nikao is hiding in the karate club room, so he and Sana go in there and try to get in, but are unable to since Nikao jammed the door. Akito remembers the small window leading into the room, but he and Sana get stuck trying to get in there to save Nikao. They find Nikao, who appears to be very weak, and he tells them how he wants to die. The teachers and their friends eventually find all three of them trapped in there, and after they are found, they are taken to the hospital, which I felt was the best part of this arc, as Sana and Akito reflect on what has happened to them, with Akito telling Sana that he used to feel how Nikao did, but he was fortunate enough to have Sana help him get out of his self-loathing and sadness. Once they leave the hospital, Fuka finds the other half of the note and brings it to the teachers' meeting to prove that Sengoku was trying to manipulate the situation to get Akito expelled. Sengoku officially resigns from his position in the spring, and the series ends with Akito and Sana on the rooftop of the school, saying to each other that they have something they need to tell one another after Akito gets his black belt in karate. Akito gives Sana another surprise kiss as well, like the one way back in Season 1 on top of the Tokyo Tower. What used to feel like an abrupt end to the series to me feels like an appropriate ending to an anime that heavily relies on cliffhangers. The conclusion to the Kodocha anime is not a satisfying one, especially with the quote-unquote Season 3 preview that we get after the final scene. Yet I still felt satisfied after reaching the end of Season 2. The story is not perfect by any means, but it was extremely enjoyable to watch throughout. As someone who read the manga first before I finished Season 2 long ago, the end of the anime used to leave me with a bitter taste in my mouth. However, for this review, I had to let go of that bias and expectation, and I'm so glad that I did, because it gave me a new appreciation for the anime and this season in particular. I still prefer the manga, but I love what the anime did and how it tried to do its own thing, while still touching on some of the same themes presented in the latter half of the manga. Is it as good as the manga? It depends on your preference, but that is a discussion for another time. Out of all the filler content of Season 2, the most notable is definitely the New York arc, given its length and subject matter. As mentioned before, I personally feel that this arc complements the original material, despite its length and pacing issues. There are many fun and enjoyable moments, and we get more info on Natsumi's parents and backstory, which added to his character. The filler that comes after this arc and the breakup arc make up the majority of the last half of the season, and definitely adds to the world of Kodocha. But these episodes are more similar to the filler in Season 1, one-off episodes that are just fun or feature characters that we haven't seen for a while. I really enjoyed the filler in this season, as it invoked more humor than in the previous episodes. A notable filler episode is episode 90, one of those weird, out-of-place filler that feels like it should be in a kid's cartoon and not a shoujo anime. The absurdity of having a half episode dedicated to Hayama's father building a robot of his deceased wife and mother of his children and having her escape and destroy Tokyo, and Sana battle her as a magical girl is just a wild concept that I absolutely adore. I also can't get over the subtle nods to Neon Genesis Evangelion, an anime with a completely different tone and setting, and also an anime that I really love. This episode almost feels like a parody of that, mixed with magical girl elements. Some other filler episodes that were enjoyable were episode 94, which features the return of Zenjiro and Child's Toy, and episode 98, which features a storyline about Natsumi dating a guy who ends up being a jerk. It was nice seeing these characters get a little screen time before the season finale. Overall, for the story and filler content of Season 2, I give it an 8 out of 10. While Season 2 is enjoyable in its own way and does many things right in terms of drama, romance, and its unique storylines, it falls flat when it comes to pacing and faithfully adapting the source material. This season unfortunately sacrifices the great writing in the manga in order to pursue its own unique style, which didn't work because it ultimately made more dramatic, intense situations shallow and less meaningful versions of their counterparts. What can I say? The music in Kodocha never fails to make me smile, laugh, or tear up. This season features one of the most zany and memorable anime openings of the 90s, and also some great ending songs which adds to the suspense of the episode cliffhangers. As for the background music, this is where Season 2 surpasses Season 1. Some of the best tracks are featured in this season, including Fuka's theme, the theme from Mansion of Water, and a fun musical number called the Port City Charleston featured in episode 80, another one of Season 2's best filler episodes. We get a lot of reused tracks from Season 1 here, and a new song called Always Be With You that plays during the most dramatic moments of the season. The music of Kodocha is catchy and unique. The only criticism I have regarding the music is that I felt it was sometimes underutilized or utilized at weird times. For example, and this might be a nitpick as someone who is a hardcore fan of the series, I found it a bit irritating during the episode after the New York arc when we get to see what Akito and Fuka are up to, and there are songs that play in the background during their dates that were typically used in earlier romantic scenes of Sana and Akito, and I felt they could have just come up with a new theme for these scenes. I felt that using the music at that specific time was almost disrespectful to the established relationship between Sana and Akito. And with that, my rating for the music of Kodocha Season 2 is a 9 out of 10. Kodocha Series 2 sometimes feels like a different anime compared to its predecessor. While Season 1 mostly sticks to the source material or goes into a more comedic direction with its filler, Season 2 develops the romance and drama aspects of the series in a way that is overall beneficial for the series as a whole. Series 2 doesn't make me laugh as much as Series 1, but I love the comedic moments it has to offer when it does feel like being silly. In all honesty, Series 2 is like a reflection of real life, and how people change as they grow older. Sometimes it's confusing, messy, and surprising. The way Series 2 is presented is almost poetic in that way. The children and adults we watch grow throughout Series 1 are now older in Series 2, going through puberty, life changes, and everything in between. With Season 2's emphasis on drama and romance, along with its pacing issues, it feels like we are experiencing adolescence all over again, which can sometimes be uncomfortable and perplexing. Kodocha Series 2 is not by any means a masterpiece, rather a product of creative experimentation with its source material that succeeds most of the time. Overall, I give Kodocha Series 2 a 9 out of 10. Despite its flaws, it's an absolute joy to watch, and I would highly recommend it to any anime fan. Thanks for watching my review. What are your thoughts on Kodocha Series 2 for those who have seen it? For those who haven't, did my review make you want to check it out? Please like, comment below, and subscribe for more videos like this in the future. And don't forget to consider purchasing the new Blu-ray, link in the description below. Also, would you all like a review of Series 1? Please let me know. See ya!